Kobe Bryant is a GOAT and a black mamba GOAT. Although Kobe's specific ranking all time differs from fan to fan, no matter what, he's certainly in the conversation of greatest players of all time. I unfortunately never got to enjoy the privilege of watching Kobe play live in his prime, as I only started following the NBA just a few years ago. And when I say started following the NBA, I mean that before the 2018 NBA season, my knowledge of the NBA was effectively nothing. In other words, the number of Kevin Durant's rings that mean something. But I digress. Prior to investing myself in the NBA, there were literally only 4 basketball players I could name. They were Michael Jordan, because I'd seen him in Space Jam, Shaq, because of Scary Movie 4, LeBron James, because of Trainwreck,
sexual intercourse, oh!
and Kobe Bryant, simply because he's that iconic. As every baller around the world knows that you yell Kobe as you fade away on a jump shot, even in silly backwards outback Australia, where I'm from. Although I missed out on watching him play live, you best believe I've spent countless hours over these past few years catching myself up on his highlights. It didn't take me very long to become enamored with the greatness he consistently espoused across his career. Of course, today is the 1-year anniversary of Kobe's passing, along with his daughter Gigi and the 7 other people aboard that ill-fated helicopter. So as a means to commemorate the Black Mamba's legacy, I thought I would make a video that examines which version of Kobe was better, number 8 or number 24. And that's not a very straightforward question to answer. Some of Kobe's greatest career highs and lows both occurred with each number, and fans are pretty evenly split between picking which Kobe was better. So in order to formulate my final verdict, there are a number of areas that I'll be comparing 8 and 24 in. These will be statistics, accolades, shooting efficiency, scoring, defense, finals performances, leadership, and winning. Let's get into it, shall we? Statistically, 8 and 24 probably couldn't have been much closer than what they ended up being. With Kobe's 20-year career evenly split between those two numbers, with both numbers including the seasons at the start and end of his career where he wasn't all that great, it does make sense that his total stats with each number are similar. But nonetheless, it's still quite remarkable how exceptionally close his total statistics for each number are. Had he played 4 to 5 more games as 24, he might just have more total points than number 8. Nonetheless, 8 mostly beats out 24 in regards to total accumulation of stats, but given that 8 played more games, that's likely to be expected. 8 and 24's per game averages are predictably similar, but this time, 24 easily wins out. 24 averaged more points, assists, and rebounds, and is only marginally behind with steals and turnovers. Although 8 did have Kobe's career high season averages for points and rebounds, with 35.4 points in 2006 and 6.9 rebounds in 2003 respectively, the fact that 24 still averaged more than 8 in the 3 main statistical categories means he edges out the W over 8 for the statistics section. Accolade-wise, 8 and 24 are once more very similar. Although 24 has 10 All-Star appearances compared to 8's 8, if you ignore the seasons where Kobe objectively did not play like an All-Star, then he has 7 All-Star appearances each way. Number 8 has a total of 8 All-NBA teams to 24's 7, except only 4 of 8's were first team, compared to all 7 of 24's, which gives the edge to 24. 24 did get an extra All-Defensive first team over 8, except a couple of those were pretty undeserving, and awarded to Kobe based more on his star power and not the actual quality of defense he was playing those seasons. With 8 and 24 each copying a scoring title apiece, the main differentiator between the two, at least in terms of accolades, is 8's 3 championships to 24's 2 championships, 2 finals MVPs, and regular season MVP. Although some people might give the edge to 8 because he won an extra championship, in my opinion, 24 easily wins out. I would argue that 2 rings and an MVP alone is more valuable and impressive than 3 rings and nothing else. So add on 2 finals MVPs, then yeah, 24 wins the accolades section. 2 words not often associated with one another is Kobe and efficiency, and if they are, it's usually when one is suggesting that the former lacked the latter. Nonetheless, across his career, for both 8 and 24, Kobe consistently shot the ball with very similar levels of efficiency. 8 and 24's efficiency indicators are all super close, and with the exception of 3-point shooting, they're all within 0.6% of each other. Although 24 hit his free throws at a slightly higher rate and had an equal effective field goal percentage percentage, the fact that 8 had a higher field goal, 3-point, and true shooting percentage means they definitely win out for shooting efficiency. The higher true shooting percentage for 8 is definitely the most valuable of the efficiency indicators. True shooting encompasses all areas of the game in which one scores points, so to be the more efficient true shooter means 8 is truly the more efficient shooter. A word Kobe is often associated with is scoring. He's one of the greatest scorers the game has ever seen. Although he may not have ever had the best shot selection, this was a weakness very much mitigated by the fact that he had a great knack for being able to hit his shots anyway, regardless of whatever double or triple teams were thrown his way. And what makes his scoring ability even more impressive, outside of the fact that he averaged 35 points while playing with Kwame Brown,
this man was a bona fide scrub. He can't play. No disrespect whatsoever.
Is that his best scoring years came during the 2000s, one of the slowest paced and most defensive orientated eras in NBA history. Kobe would lead the league in scoring 2 times, once in 2006 where he averaged 35.4 points a game, and once in 2007 where he averaged 31.6 points a game. These 2 seasons respectively occurred with 8 and 24, as Kobe opted to change his jersey number after the 06 season. Throughout his career, Kobe showcased some of the greatest scoring feats in NBA history, and these occurred with both his jersey numbers. For example, in 2003, number 8 would have 16 straight games of at least 30 points, which included 9 straight games of 40 points. This streak was the longest since Wilt Chamberlain in 1964. In December 2005, in a game against the Mavericks, in only 3 quarters of play, number 8 would drop 62 points. In those 3 quarters, Kobe outscored the entire opposing Mavericks team 62-61. As the game had become a 30-point blowout due to Kobe's exceptional play, he wouldn't play a single minute of the 4th quarter. Phil Jackson asked him if he wanted to go back in to try for 70, but Kobe said, "Nah, I'll get it another time, eh?" As fate would have it, he soon did. A month later, fortunately for every non-Raptors NBA fan, on January 22nd, 2006, Kobe would have the greatest game of his career, and with a 74 true shooting percentage, he would drop 81 points on Jalen Rose's hairline.
Jalen!
Oh, no. Hey, Cole, how you doing? How retirement treating you?
It's great, man. It's great. Just, a little writing, a little investing.
Either. A drink, Mr. Bryant?
Yeah, I'll have a vodka martini.
How many olives would you like?
81.
Really?
Nah, man, I'm just playing. Just 2. Joke for him. He gets it.
In terms of individual games, Kobe's 81 piece against the Raptors is absolutely the magnus opus of his career, and was the game that made the NBA world universally realize that Kobe was now, unequivocally, the best player in basketball. Although Kobe's career high occurred with number 8, 24 wasn't too shabby himself. For example, in March of 2007, 24 would drop 65 points against the Blazers, 33 of which coming in the 4th quarter and overtime period alone. In the following games, Kobe would drop 50 points, 65 points, and then another 50 points. This 50-point plus stretch would come to an end when for his 5th game, 24 would only score 43 points. In his words, off night. Across his career, Kobe would average 40 points across a month 4 times. 3 of these months occurred whilst wearing number 8. Of Kobe's 10 high-scoring seasons, 6 belonged to 24 and the other 4 to number 8. Something that 8 and 24 both equally shared was Kobe's killer instinct. The Black Mamba hit numerous clutch shots and game winners with both jerseys. This includes hitting 8 buzzer-beater game-winning shots across his career. This amount of game-winning buzzer-beaters is good for second most all time, 1 shot shy of being equal to the GOAT himself, Michael Jordan, who has 9 buzzer-beater game winners. 5 of Kobe's 8 buzzer-beaters were by number 8, including Kobe's most iconic game winner, which was his shot in 2006 to put the Lakers up 3-1 on the Phoenix Suns. As we've already covered, 24 averaged slightly more points than 8, 26.3 to 23.9 points respectively. But then again, as we've also already covered, 8 was a slightly more efficient scorer than 24 was. 8 and 24 were obviously both phenomenal scorers, although their respective approaches to scoring were slightly different. Number 8 had Kobe in his athletic prime. Kobe was was basically jumping out of the gym every time he went up for a dunk. His raw athleticism and explosion was just unreal. 24 could certainly still get up there and throw it down, but he never had the same lift or burst in his legs that his younger self had while wearing number 8. But as Kobe's athleticism went down, his mastery of the game went up. Whereas 8 was basically a ball of energy that could zip past you any moment to get to his spot, or maybe just rise up to throw down the dunk, 24 was much more slower paced and methodical with how he went about scoring, relying more on finesse, skill, and footwork as opposed to just raw athleticism. At the end of the day, both 8 and 24's approaches to scoring were pretty damn effective in getting the ball to go through the basket, and picking the better scorer was tough. I was nearly inclined to just call it a draw. Number 8 had more 40-point games, but 24 had more 30, 50, and 60-point games, although there is one stat that 8 will always have over 24, and that is an 81-point game. And ultimately, I have to go with 8 as the better scorer. Kobe's 81-point masterpiece alone could be reason enough to give the scoring section to number 8, but combined with the fact that 8 also had Kobe in his athletic prime and includes his highest scoring season in 2006, 8 wins out on scoring. Defense, a word that only idiots spell with an S, is something that Kobe was pretty good at. When locked in, he was a phenomenal on-ball stopper, a tenacious perimeter defender that was great at always staying in front of his man. He had great instincts and discipline, and would rarely leave the ground for pump fakes. Although Kobe never racked up a huge amount of steals or blocks, a part of that was because he didn't like to gamble, and would instead focus on always forcing his man into taking a bad shot. Where Kobe was not so great on defense was in off-ball situations, where, especially in the latter half of 24's career, he tended to prefer conserving his energy and often lost track of assignments. As 24 got older, his effort on the defensive side of the ball was similar to what we see from LeBron today. During the regular season, LeBron tends to twiddle his thumbs and not bother expending too much energy playing defense. But nonetheless, when the situation calls for it, such as in the playoffs or in close late game situations, he's able to turn the defense on and lock opposing players down. 24 was the same, with his general defensive effort from about 2009 onwards being quite subpar, as he saved his energy for the offensive side of the ball. But when the situation called for it, he could still turn it on. For number 8, however, conserving energy for the offensive side of the ball was no such problem. With Kobe in his athletic prime, he was able to consistently play defense at an elite level and continually exert sufficient effort on that side of the ball. And in 2002, number 8 even placed 3rd in Defensive Player of the Year voting. Although 8 and 24 each accumulated 6 all-defensive teams, 24 doesn't really deserve about 2 or 3 of those, and was awarded them more off star power than anything else. Although statistics are never the be-all end-all for indicating a player's defensive impact, in Kobe's case, they do support number 8's defense over 24, with 8 having a better defensive rating, more defensive win shares, and a better defensive plus-minus. And after his Achilles tear in 2013, 24 was especially horrendous on defense, and in his final season playing NBA basketball, he ranked 13th last out of 468 players for defensive plus-minus. Thus, without question, defense goes to number 8. Initially, I was going to do a section comparing 8 and 24's playoff performances, but instead opted to look more specifically at what they did in the finals, as the NBA Finals is ultimately the biggest stage in basketball, and is where one makes or breaks their legacy. Fortunately for Kobe, this is where he cemented his legacy, accumulating 5 rings over 7 finals appearances, split 3-2 between 8 and 24 respectively. With the exception of free throw percentage and blocks, the head-to-head statistics largely favour 24 over 8, particularly with points, where 24 averaged 28.7 points to 8's 21.8 points during the finals. Obviously, 8 spent his 4 finals appearances playing alongside the Big Diesel, which was both a blessing and a curse. Of course, the blessing of playing with Prime Shaq is that you're playing with Prime Shaq, the most dominant player in NBA history.
I ain't Shaq.
With that version of Shaq on your team, you're immediately a contender. The downside, however, at least from an individual perspective, is that because Shaq is just so amazing, the opportunity for more touches and shot attempts, and thus chance to win Finals MVP, isn't really there. The closest 8 came to winning Finals MVP was 2002, where he averaged 27 points and over 50% from the field and 3. But even a stat line as great as that wasn't enough to compete with Shaq's 36 and 12 on 60% shooting. In his next Finals appearance, 8 was determined to win the Finals MVP this time, and proceeded to play the worst Finals series of his career, severely hurt hurting his team's championship aspirations and creating the biggest blemish on Kobe's legacy. Whichever way you spin it, 8's performance in the 2004 finals was shithouse. With these finals unfolding during the peak of the Shaq and Kobe feud, and with 8 determined to win his first finals MVP, he ultimately played right into the Pistons' defensive plan. The whole series, all 8 did was chuck up contested brick after contested brick, and was content to continue playing with that strategy and not defer to prime Shaq in the post.
Pass the ball, Kobe.
Although 8 did hit one of the clutchest shots in NBA Finals history in his only good game of that series in Game 2, he was still a black hole on offense for that entire series, and was a massive detriment to his team's success. 24 has no such blemish on his finals performances. Although he couldn't get it done against the Celtics in 08, that wasn't due to any particularly selfish or bad play. That 66-win Celtics team with Paul Pierce, KG, and Jesus in their primes was simply the better team. Even though 8 three-peated, because of his performance in the 04 finals, and because 24 averaged better stats and was the best player on his team for his 2 championships, 24 wins this section. Although nearly all aspects of 8 and 24's careers and performance on the court are quite similar and comparable, I think basically every NBA fan would agree that 24 was the better leader of the two. Now that isn't necessarily 8's fault, but more a product of the situation that 8 and 24 found themselves in. When Kobe first came into the league, he was an 18-year-old that was less than 6 months removed from sitting in a high school classroom, and he was joining a team that had just acquired NBA superstar Shaquille O'Neal. During Shaq's time with the Lakers, he made the All-Star team every single season, made the All-NBA first team every season, except the 2 years where he was All-NBA third and second team, was an MVP, a 3-time Finals MVP, the strongest, most dominant player in the league, and just an all-around funny, charismatic guy. Every year that Shaq wore a Lakers jersey, that was his team, and thus 8 barely had any opportunity to grow into the leader of this team that already had its leader clearly established. And in the 2 seasons after Shaq was traded, and 8 finally got to be the undisputed leader of his team, the Lakers missed the playoffs in 2005, and in 2006 were a first-round exit. Now, to be fair, Kobe didn't exactly have much help around him in those 2 seasons. A lot of people harp on about how useless LeBron's early Cavalier teammates were, but they were still a lot better than number 8's supporting cast during those 2 seasons. A bowl of Cheerios and milk probably would have been more useful than half the players on those rosters. And in the 2006 playoffs, as the 7 seed facing the 2-seeded MVP-led Phoenix Suns, number 8 nearly led his team to the upset after giving the Lakers a 3-1 lead following one of the clutchest games of his career. Although the Lakers would ultimately still fall in 7 games, and 8 didn't exactly play like much of a leader in Game 7. The game prior, in Game 6, number 8 played absolutely phenomenal and would end the night with 50 points. At the end of the 4th quarter, with multiple clutch buckets from 8, the Lakers were poised to win the game and advance to the 2nd round. But after failing to secure the defensive rebound, one thing led to another, and Tim Thomas hit a game-tying 3 that Laker fans will never forget. The game would go to overtime where the Suns eventually came out victorious, despite Kobe's 50-point effort. So heading into Game 7 back at Phoenix, a lot of responsibility was on Kobe's shoulders as the team's leader to propel his team to the victory. And in the first half, he answered the call, dropping 23 points before the halftime siren sounded. But in the second half, with the series on the line, judging from what we saw, it would appear that number 8 basically gave up. He would score only 1 point in the second half, and attempt a total of 3 shots. This uncharacteristically passive play from Kobe is kind of similar to what we saw from LeBron in 2011, except even worse. Whether it was because he was angry at his teammates for being so shit, frustrated for his team blowing a 3-1 lead despite his 50 points in Game 6, or to send a message to the Lakers front office signaling that he needs more help, whatever it was, it would very much appear that 8 gave up on his team in the second half of that game. I don't know about you, but giving up on your team in Game 7 of the playoffs isn't exactly what I would call being a very good leader. 24 was much better equipped on all ends to be his team's leader. Unlike 8, 24 was a clear-cut leader of his team every single year that he wore that jersey. And also unlike 8, Kobe was equipped with 10 years of experience playing in in the NBA when he started wearing number 24, as opposed to where he started with number 8, and that was being 5 months removed from high school. 24 was a more mature seasoned pro that had experienced both many highs and lows, and thus knew much better than 8 ever did on how to lead his team to the promised land. As the clear-cut best player on his team's roster, 24 led the Lakers to multiple deep playoff runs, including 2 championships, something number 8 can't similarly attest to. 24 unquestionably wins out over 8 for leadership. One of the main things Kobe will always be remembered as is as a winner. His rigorous work ethic was unmatched, constantly training to get better than yesterday, and he reaped the rewards of his hard work with 5 championships. The statistics around 8 and 24's effectiveness at winning all largely skew towards 8's favour. 8 surpassed 24 in championships, won more games, won more in the playoffs, had more win shares. So for the uninformed, from looking at these numbers alone, you might think that 8 was easily the better winner. Well, like most things in basketball, numbers don't always tell the whole story. From the perspective of winning games, number 8 had the huge advantage over 24 in that he played 80% of his seasons alongside prime Shaq. This isn't to say 8 wasn't a critical part in those Lakers teams being as successful as they were. Of course, it was Shaq and Kobe, not just Shaq. But nonetheless, by playing with a top 10 player of all time, an opportunity that was never afforded to 24, of course the winning percentages are going to be skewed in 8's favour. What these numbers also fail to illustrate are the times that 8 simply didn't play what one might deem as winning basketball. The 04 finals come to mind, as well as the fact he missed the playoffs in the middle of his prime in 2005, and not to mention the second half of Game 7 in the 2006 playoffs. I'm not going to act like 24 won every single game he ever played, but these type of notable moments where he didn't do as much as he could have to help his team win just simply aren't as present for 24. Although 24 was no longer the same level of scorer or defender that 8 was, his experience, maturity and understanding of the game was all much more developed, and he thus knew much more on how to win. Take the 2013 season for example. 24 did literally everything physically possible to will that dysfunctional injury-ridden Lakers team to the playoffs, and although successful in getting his team to the playoffs, he paid the price in a torn Achilles in the end of his prime. Although Kobe never had much of a reputation for being a pass-first guy, 24 was a much more willing passer than 8 ever was, and instilled confidence in them that would benefit the overall success of the team. Nowhere is this more evident than with 24's assist to Ron Artest for the 3 at the end of Game 7 in the 2010 finals.
And he passed me the ball. He never passed me the ball. And he passed me the ball. Kobe passed me the ball. And I shot a 3.
In Kobe's own words, when explaining the difference between 8 and 24, he described number 8 as literally headhunting everyone in the league, while he suggested 24 was more mature and more focused on how he could help his teammates grow and win. Furthermore, during an interview in February 2019, Kobe flat out said that James Harden's style of play wasn't going to win a championship. And of course, he has an idea or two as to what he's talking about, because that style of play is what netted him very little success when he was playing that way after Shaq left the team. And it was that experience that informed 24 on how to be more successful as a leader of his team. 24 had learned from his past experiences and knew how to get the most out of not only himself but his teammates, and thus was the better winner as a result. There isn't a definitive correct answer to which version of Kobe was better. Both 8 and 24 were absolute monsters in their own right. However, in my totally subjective opinion, and based off my completely arbitrary grading sections that I used to compare 8 and 24 for this video, I ultimately think that 24 is the better version of Kobe. While number 8 was an absolute killer, 24 was a master of the game, and was a more complete, better overall player. The thesis of Mamba mentality is to try to be better today than you were yesterday. And the growth of Kobe from 8 to 24 is indicative of that mentality at work. Number 8 was Froby, number 24 was the Black Mamba. And the fact that Kobe had 2 first ballot Hall of Fame worthy careers within a single career whilst wearing 2 different numbers is just further testament to his greatness. I hope you and Gigi rest in peace, man.
8 or 24. It's really tough for me. I think 24 was more challenging. You know, I tend to gravitate to things that are harder to do, and physically for me it was really hard to get up night in and night out, man. It was really it's a grind. I guess if you forced me to pick one, I'd probably go with 24 because of that.